Hello and welcome back to the Our Stressless Home podcast. I am glad that you're here today. And I'm sure that if you press play on this episode, that there's a good chance that you're standing in your house or maybe sitting in your car or on a walk. And there's that feeling of familiar tightness in your chest that says, I can't keep up with all of this. This is the moment that most people start to explain to me the feeling of rage cleaning. And they just want to throw everything away in their homes. So let's try to catch this before it gets that bad. You might be looking around and thinking, this house is just too much, or I don't even know where to start, or maybe I should be further along than this. But before we go any further, I want to say this very clearly and very gently. You do not need to fix your entire house. Not today, not this week, and honestly, not ever. This is a process that will go on, and being able to accept that it's slowly just going to have to become a part of your life and it's going to take time to master is going to help you feel better faster. I promise. You truly don't have to decide that you're going to fix everything. Because if you're anything like me, if you tell yourself that, then you're going to get so overwhelmed and just say, I'm not going to do any of this. So you don't have to fix everything today. One of the biggest mistakes that we make when we try to declutter is that we zoom out too far too fast. Our brains don't see a drawer or a surface. They see everything, every messy room, every unfinished project, every pile that's been sitting there longer than we want to admit. And when everything feels important, everything feels impossible. And this is where overwhelm lives. Professional organizers understand something that most of us were never taught, that clarity comes before action. Let me explain what this means. They don't walk into a home and say, let's do it all. They say, what's bothering you the most? Because relief doesn't come from finishing a task. It actually comes from easing the pressure in the places that matter the most in your daily life. The places that are your most used areas. Today, we're not decluttering your whole house. We're going to figure out how to prioritize. Prioritizing means choosing where your energy actually belongs. And that starts with a very simple, very grounding question. What space is making my life harder right now? Not the whole room and not the entire floor of your house, but one specific spot. It might be the kitchen counter where you are constantly clearing space just to make dinner. That happens to me all of the time. Maybe it's the entryway where bags and shoes just pile up and they greet you every single time that you walk in the door. It might be your nightstand, the last thing that you see before bed and the first thing that you see in the morning. That space, the one that keeps tapping you on the shoulder, that's the place that we start. And I want to say something really important here because especially if you tend to be hard on yourself, these are the things that you need to remember. Starting small is not avoiding the problem. And it's not just being irresponsible. Starting small is how the problem gets solved. You have to solve this one tiny piece at a time. We've been conditioned to believe that the real progress looks really big and dramatic. That's why we like to watch these organization shows or these renovation shows, right? We like to see one space go from something crazy to something orderly in a short amount of time. And that just is not realistic. We think that it needs to be big and dramatic for it to be effective, but it doesn't. For some reason, if we think, I'm not exhausted at the end of this, that it didn't count. But homes don't change through intensity. They change through consistency. And consistency starts with breaking off the smallest piece that you can actually maintain and create order and structure out of. I've been listening recently to Jordan Peterson's lectures in Peterson Academy, and he has been talking about if we imagine the world as the garden, we have to keep building enough walls inside of a garden until we've cut off a small enough space that we can bring order and control to. And so think of the same thing with your home. Your entire home is something that you need to manage, but break it off into small enough sections where you can really truly bring order to one space. So maybe if you're thinking that your kitchen is the most out of control, go to your kitchen first. And maybe the question right now is just, how can I keep my countertops clean for a day? Maybe it's how can I keep this one area that tends to be the dropping point clean for one day, and then you replicate keeping that area clean and making it consistent. So instead of asking, how do I get my whole house under control? I want you to practice asking, what would make today feel a little easier? That question is powerful because it pulls you back into this present moment. That's where we find something stressless, is when we can stay present. It anchors you in reality. And this can actually be a really comforting thought because you don't need an entire free weekend. You don't need motivation or the perfect plan. You need just one clear choice. So here is your 10-minute action. And I want you to really hear this part. Choose one surface, one drawer, or one basket. Set a timer for 10 minutes and only work there in that one spot. You're not allowed to spill into other areas, and you're not allowed to just keep going once the timer ends. When the timer goes off, you stop, even if it's messy, even if it's not finished, even if part of you wants to push through. Stopping is part of the practice. And that might seem a little bit crazy, but you're learning how to keep contracts with yourself, saying that you're going to do something and then following through and actually doing it. Don't make it a step that's too big. Make it something that's very, very easy, like setting a timer for 10 minutes. What you're doing right now with this little exercise isn't necessarily about having a clean house, but you're building trust with yourself. You're teaching your brain that effort doesn't have to lead to burnout. And this is really hard for most people to understand, and myself included. I think that unless I'm burning the candle at both ends, then I'm not working hard enough. And that's just not true. There is effort that is effective, and you can do it without burning yourself at the end. You're proving that small actions still matter. And over time, this is what changes everything. You're not behind and you're not failing. You are learning how to begin without panic and without pressure. I hope that you will take the time to do this tiny little step. This will seriously help you if you can learn how to wash, rinse, and repeat, and you will see the effect that it starts to have in your home. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you remember that Stressless starts in this moment, that it's the small things that make the big difference.